And welcome to the show. My name is Naeem Sharif, and this is the Al Islam and Community Issues Group program. Brother Benjamin Shabazz is our guest today.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Would you please open us with a prayer?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. I seek refuge with Allah from the rejected enemy, Satan the devil. We ask the Almighty Creator to bless us with success, and we ask the Almighty Creator to open up the minds of the viewing audience. Ameen.
Amen. All right.
And before we get started, I'd like to make something else clear. There's a lot of conversation out here about that this letter is a fake, and it's not real. So I wasn't there, so I can't testify to that, whether it's a fake or real. But I can testify to the system that's laid down in this letter that is still working today within our people. So if this letter was just a satire to bring out the system, fine. If the letter was a fake and it's just, but the information brought out it exposed the clear method of how we're being dominated and controlled.
Right.
So whether the letter was a fake or not is really not important. The fact is the fact is the facts.
Facts is a fact, and it's a story of it. Just like whether a story is real or a fable, if you can get the principles from it, that's the key part. Because that's true in Scripture, where they're just stories, and people take it for being literally. But if you get the message, the meat of it, that's the most important thing. Right. All right. Let's rock and roll.
And a young woman who actually worked with some of the early children in the Black Panther Party when she herself was a child. She babysat the first Panther kids here in Seattle, a young white woman, and from a progressive family in Madrona, where we all grew up. And she asked me to speak at her school. And I remember walking up to the campus. It's the first time I had been at this new campus down on the waterfront. And she had two students there to meet me and take me back to the classroom. And the two students, there was one white and one black. And they asked me, "Are you the former Black Panther?" And I said, "Yes." And the black student said to me, said, "What was the Black Panther Party?" And before I could say anything, he said, "Was it like the Black KKK?"
Wow.
And it hit me in terms of, and I knew that the distortions about the Black Panther Party had always been, been there. But it hit me how far we had come and how deceptive the lies are and the images of the Black Panther Party that are out there, that a young person from two generations removed, he was young enough to be a grandson.
Right.
2 generations removed, had no idea. Not only did he have no idea, in his head, he had image of hate, racism, racist organization, because he compared us to the KKK, a black KKK. And so it dawned on me how far reality had come. And you see, and often when I speak to college campuses, and I speak across the globe, in fact, that same year, that same fall, I was speaking at a conference in northern France, and I was speaking while it was at an intercultural conference. My topic and the background of my talk was the Black Panther Party's realization that you had to draw a line between supporting people's cultural identity and their right to self-determination and human rights, which was the theme of the conference. And so following that speech, 2 women from the Netherlands approached me and asked me if I would come to the Netherlands and talk about the Black Panther Party. And they said the reason why they wanted me there is because they said school children in the Netherlands learn about the Black Panther Party from grade school on up. And here I am, 10,000 miles away from the United States, and white and black kids in the Netherlands are learning about the Black Panther Party, but here in the U.S. there's this mass distortion. And it's deliberate. It's not an accident. When you think about, and when I talk to these college campuses and young people, and I ask them what they know about the Black Panther Party, if they know anything, and many of them will say a few things, and they'll say militant, or they'll say violent, or they'll say serious. And then I'll ask them if they've ever seen any images of the Black Panther Party in movies. And of course, when I say Forrest Gump, they've seen Forrest Gump, and I said, what does that leave you thinking about the Black Panther Party? And they said, like there was some anger, and even in the movie that came out of a couple of years ago, the Butler, the members of the party in that movie were no more than caricatures, as if they really had no sense. They had the sister that she was like she couldn't while she was trying to explain the breakfast program, it was just like it was a script rather than her having any real feeling and emotion from the heart. And that's the distortion of the Black Panther Party, as if we had no philosophy, as if we had no ideology, if we had no, as if we had no direction, if we had no purpose. And people didn't understand that we had a 10-point platform and program that guided our struggle, guided our activities, and that we were required. One of the first requirements that we learned when we got into the party was that we had to read 2 hours a day. We had political education classes every single day, so we learned the philosophy of revolution. We read Frantz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth, and other books like that. We read Karl Marx, we read Mao Zedong, we read Kwame Nkrumah. We read of African leaders and of other revolutionaries around the globe who had led revolutions, so that we would have a revolutionary philosophy and principles that guided us. But no one, highlights that or talks about that, as if we were not articulate and couldn't articulate what our cause was. So that's why the book is important, and that's why others have written their books as well, to make sure that there is a lasting legacy on what the Black Panther Party really was about.
Months. And of course other things have happened to me since I started wearing the hijab, and I could really, it's a different world once you move from not wearing the hijab to wearing the hijab. And so we just wanted to reach out to our neighbors and strangers alike, because like Maya Angelou said, we're more alike than we are unlike, but we're not going to know that unless we get together and share a meal and sit together, like Brother Benjamin was saying the other day. How do you know people? How would you know people? You never know till you sit with them, work with them, have a conversation with them. The minute you start doing that, your humanity reveals itself, and your sameness, comes forward, and everything else becomes a noise and kind of melts away. So I think it's very, very important for us Muslims to be proactive, like Ilay said, and reach out to our brothers and sisters, because oftentimes you have a lot of non-Muslims that come forward and want to make sure we're okay, and want to know how they can help us. And then you have the Muslims retreating to their shells, and I have my own friends, I don't need to make new friends. Well, it's very, very important that we connect with people, otherwise we could be in serious, problem.
And even in a liberal place such as Western Washington, we still meet people who are like, I have no Muslims, in my immediate area. I don't know any. So all I can see is, what is a Muslim from what television gives us? And obviously that's not a good depiction of us, So it's even important. And sometimes people will say, how come you, do it around here? We're kind of tolerant, loving people. But again, it's not, Muslims aren't seen as Americans. They're always seen as the other. So it was still important for us to reach out to people here.
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure also that, yes, there are masjids everywhere and places of worship, but majority of, most people are kind of intimidated by, places of worship.
Right.
They don't know if they enter with their shoes, without their shoes, who would they talk to, who would,
Where
they
sit,
just,
everything,
would they be welcomed? I mean, would they be kidnapped? I mean, they have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
But we wanted to give people the chance, anyone who wants to meet a Muslim, the opportunity to not only meet a Muslim and a diverse Muslim group of Muslims, but also to be able to sit with Muslims and have meal with a Muslim or with Muslims, and kind of create a beautiful, space where people can connect intimately and sit together and talk about whatever they want. So our project is more about, it's not only an interfaith, it's more about kind of relationship building, friendship building, because once you talk to people and you hear their stories, it quickly becomes your story, just like yours. And then when you hear other people saying nasty things about them, and dehumanizing them, it's easier for you to think about the people you met and talk with and had a meal with and say, you don't know what you're talking about. People are not all the same. And believe me, it has been just incredible. It's been an incredible journey. People reach out to us from everywhere, not only from Washington State, everywhere in King County and Washington State, but also from other states. Do you have Eid with Muslims here? We want to meet Muslims. So people are out there, want to reach out to us and meet us and sit with us and hear our side of the story and get to know us. We need to do the same and get out of our shell.
When I was younger, it used to be, what's going on, man? Oh, it's the white man's world. I'm just living in it.
Right.
And this was just said in regular conversation, and nobody stopped and, what did he say? We just went along as a daily routine. And one of the things in the book, it talks about language.
Right.
How language is really critical in keeping the language, keeping the language downgrading to the slave, never letting him rise up. Another thing they said about language was that the slave master had to be careful how he talked around the slaves.
Right.
Not to introduce the slave into his language. And one of the things that was mandatory during the time that we call slavery was that the slave could not be allowed to have an education. The matter of fact, it was capital punishment if anyone was caught teaching a slave how to read or write. So, of course, there were violations to that.
Right.
But the violations was mostly dealing with teaching a slave how to read the Bible. Which was, how can I put it, was another slave-making entity if you didn't fully understand it and all of its nuances.
Right.
Because the main thing in the Bible that was misrepresented in Christianity, was misrepresented, was the fact that Jesus was a Caucasian. You see, so people might say, well, what's that got to do with anything? It's just, we're talking about Jesus. What color? Color doesn't matter.
Right.
So the point is, if color doesn't matter, then let's teach the truth. If we're teaching the truth about the Bible, the truth about Jesus, well, let's teach the truth.
There you go.
Jesus was straight up a Palestinian from the Middle East. So to portray him as other than that is not true.
Right.
But it was very helpful in keeping the slave's mind focusing off of himself as being anything of worth, and focusing on his slave master as having all the worth that can possibly be, because God Almighty chose white flesh to enter into the world of men.
And on that point, if you just think about it, where supposedly they were trying to hide Jesus, during a certain period of time when he was younger. Now, if he was Caucasian, blonde-haired, blue eyes, he'd be real easy to find. Just some, food for thought on that. Yeah. Slavery in Africa by Muslims. So I've heard different things, and I'm sure you have too. But what is your whole understanding about that?
Well, You know, I think that it is a crime, really, to bring that up in a way that wants to make the comparison as if slavery in Islam was like slavery under European domination and colonization. You see, because slavery is really shouldn't be a word. The word shouldn't be used like that. It should be servitude, so to speak. Because during the times of those ancient days, so to speak, people would seek out servitude. They would seek out people that they wanted to serve, and devote themselves to those people 100%. You know, be the caretaker of the yards, to watch their kids or whatever. But it was an honorable position almost. And so we can intermingle servitude and slavery so easily. You know, this is my slave, you see. So how Muhammad got rid of slavery, Allah instructed him that if you have a slave, you have to feed him the food that you eat. If you have a slave, he must wear the same quality of clothes that you wear. If you have a slave, you have to educate him. At any point in time that he wants to bargain for his freedom, you have to give it to him. So I remember the time when they were talking about this, one of the slave owners, you know, he said, what the hell do I need a slave for?
My people are rising, and we talked about this on another show that we did, and so we're looking forward. One of the things in this book that Aaron wrote was about your father, the experience he had in the military. Do you want to touch on that? And I can see why that kind of put the Panther spirit into you.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the Panther spirit is a lot of things. But I think that the thing about our father was that he instilled ideals that were similar to the ideals of the Black Panther Party, and he was a lover of life, and he loved people. He had a natural kind of a charm with people. And he and his buddies, when he was in high school and starting college in 1940, had formed a group called the Four Feathers. And they had taken that name from the movie The Four Horsemen. And, you know, they were these guys that were, you know, that were out to have fun and to stand up, you know, for justice. You know, they were just, you know, they were a group of guys, you know, black guys. And when Pearl Harbor was bombed, they went right away and signed up for to serve in the military.
Okay.
And when he got his orders to report for boot camp, he saw the initial MI and thought that he was going to Michigan or Missouri. And as it turned out, he was going to a small town in Mississippi, which is where all of the black recruits went because the service was still very segregated at that time. And he ended up in the infantry in the Fighting 54th,
Okay.
which was the same fighting infantry that was featured in the film Glory. And so that long line of black soldiers that began in the Civil War, he was part of that same exact unit. And after they had gone through boot camp, they were ready now to go out and fight, and they were to have their final parade through the streets of the town. And these, if you've ever seen an old war movie, you know, where the troops are going off to war,
Yeah.
and they're marching through the town, and the flags are waving, and the confetti's flying, and the people are cheering them on. Well, as they were marching through their their final march before they were being shipped out across seas. They were being spat upon, called nigger and cursed as they were going off to fight for freedom and justice here in this country. It's a stark dichotomy to, fighting for your country and being booed and jeered and spat upon as you're going off to fight. But the thing that was important about that was that it never colored my father in terms of how he viewed people. He always believed in and taught us the same tenets that Dr. King had espoused, which was to judge a person by the content of their character, but not the color of their skin. He had many friends, and they were of all color and persuasion. I remember cleaning the floors, the hardwood floors in our parents' home, waxing and polishing them to a high, brilliant shine on our hands and knees while we listened to La Boheme and Madame Butterfly. And so we learned to appreciate all forms of music, whether it be jazz and Duke Ellington or James Brown, which was our music, but he allowed us to play it, or opera and Tchaikovsky. So we had a broad breadth of experience, and that taught us to appreciate cultures. And we realized that the reason why we were polishing those floors was because once a month his Scandinavian friends would come by, and they were Swedes, they were Irish, they were multiple cultures, and they would come by and they would do this Scandinavian dancing on these hardwood floors, this loud, loud dancing, and so it was that kind of exposure. Later, when we were in the Black Panther Party, we realized that we had to build coalitions, and in fact, we started the first Rainbow Coalition. That was not a phrase that was coined by Jesse Jackson that people popularly think that's where it came from. He had, in fact, the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago, but it came from Fred Hampton.
I asked that question because I guess around the time of the 40th anniversary of the Black Panther, they had an event at Seattle Central. And one of the brothers was saying that the ex-Panthers, he was saying that, the Black Panthers were good. It was a good experience, but they didn't have that spiritual component. So that's why I asked.
Well, that's why I asked. But thing interesting, I would say we didn't have that spiritual thing. It was more, bam, this is it,
Right.
But you need that. You need that spiritual, I think, in your life to make things, come complete. So, like I say, it's like the Quran says, take the best thereof.
Right.
What you find in the Black Panther Party, that's good, and that's going to help people. Use that. What you find in the Nation of Islam, that's good. Use that. Take the best thereof. Like about 3 minutes. Anything else you want to add, or what can we do with this information? We got this information. Now, how do we overcome it?
Well, I'd like to add 2 points. Number one, this is in the Quran. This whole Willie Lynch thing, it's in the Quran. And I'm going to read it very quickly.
Okay.
But number two, how do we undo it? We bring out this scientific information like this.
Okay.
And put it on the table, and let's see if we can dissect it and walk it backwards. Let people know this is what's happening. This is not these people aren't just prejudiced and hate us, just because they just fell out the sky. They've been taught that. It's been translated generation after generation.
A process.
It's a process.
Gotcha.
So in the Quran, this is Surah 28, the narrations, Al-Qasas. And this is, I'll read it, it goes like this. Tasin Meme, These are verses of the book that makes things clear. We rehearse to thee some of the story of Moses and Pharaoh in truth, for people who believe. Truly, Pharaoh elated himself in the land and broke up its people into sections, depressing a small group among them. Their sons he slew, but he kept alive their females, for he was indeed a maker of mischief. And I'll just leave it at that. That's exactly what's going on. The separation of the male and the female.
Wow, that's it. Well, that's interesting. Like you say, it's right there. The story's right there. We thank our listening audience, and thank you, Brother Benjamin, for coming out, and we thank our crew. We hope we've started you thinking of this and thinking of the solutions. So we thank you very much, and we leave you in peace.
Let's do a part 2 sometime.
A part 2, we will try to do a part 2 on this.
Don't forget, try to get you a Willie Lynch book, The Willie Lynch Letter, The Making of a Slave. Be very interesting.
All right. Thank you again. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.